Scorpio, something you've been waiting for perhaps without even realizing is already on its way back to you. This month carries the kind of turning point that doesn't just mark a change in circumstances, but a restoration of soul alignment. In November, you're stepping through a sacred gateway, one where money returns not as random luck, but as a divine correction. Where a goodbye arrives unexpectedly but frees you deeply. And where true love finally shows up not to fix you, but to meet you as you are, whole and worthy. You didn't come across this video by accident. You were led here, gently and intentionally, because a part of you has been calling out for truth, for confirmation, for something real to anchor into. That's why this message is not just an astrological forecast, it is a spiritual reflection of the timeline your soul is already walking. Perhaps you're standing at the edge of an inner shift. You feel something closing, quietly, behind you. And yet somehow you also sense that you're not losing anything essential. What's gone was never meant to stay. What's coming, however, is what was always meant for you. When the universe wants to restore you, it often begins not by adding something, but by removing what no longer resonates. It doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it whispers. And that whisper brought you here today. Let this be your sign. In the next few minutes, we will dive into what November truly holds for you beyond predictions, beyond fear, because this is a month where energy moves in your favor. Not because you begged for it, but because you finally stopped resisting what's rightfully yours. Money that was once blocked now finds a new path. A person, connection, or role that no longer reflects your truth may gently fall away. And love comes not as fantasy, but as a mirror of your own transformation. This isn't a reward for struggle. It's a reflection of how much you've grown. If any part of your spirit has whispered, "I'm ready for things to be different now," know that this video is your confirmation. Sometimes, it's not about chasing healing. It's about recognizing that God has already begun preparing the answer before you even finish the question. He is not late. He is simply wise in timing. And in a world that often demands you to stay strong, keep going, keep giving, this moment is about letting yourself receive. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to thank you for being here. Whether this is your first time watching or you've been a quiet part of this journey for a while, your presence matters. Every like, every comment, every time you hit subscribe, it weaves you closer into the family of this space. Your energy helps bring messages like this into form, and I'm truly grateful for you. So, Scorpio, if you're still here with me, know this: you are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being guided home through clarity, through truth, through love. Stay with me until the end of this reading, because what the universe is about to show you might not just surprise you, it might heal something you didn't even know needed healing. And if something inside you already knows this message is for you, I invite you to take a moment and comment below. I'm ready to receive what is already mine. Let that be your signal to the universe. Let it be the prayer your future self will thank you for. Are you ready? Let's begin. Scorpio, this is the season of return. Not just of things or people, but of energy. Value off the seeds you once planted in silence, believing they might never bloom. And now, without needing to chase, plead, or exhaust yourself, you're entering the sacred cycle where what you gave from a place of truth comes back to you magnified. This is not a coincidence. The cosmos has shifted into a configuration that aligns with deep restoration for your sign. The sun is journeying through Scorpio, activating your core identity and inner power, while Jupiter, the planet of expansion and divine justice, is moving direct again. Projects that once stalled, recognition that was delayed, financial breakthroughs you thought were lost in the wind are all finding their way back. Not because you asked louder, but because you aligned deeper. You see, real abundance doesn't come to those who chase. It gravitates toward those who have remembered their worth. That's why you may feel an inner stillness now, even if the outside world hasn't caught up yet. That stillness is the resonance of your alignment. And alignment is the true currency of manifestation. The universe doesn't operate on deadlines, it operates on divine timing. You didn't miss your window. You've just reached the part of your journey where the roots you buried beneath adversity are strong enough to bear visible fruit. And now, finally, the return begins. But what is returning isn't always exactly what you envisioned. It may come through unexpected sources, new relationships, or even old connections arriving with different intentions. Stay open. Stay soft. Stay grounded. The law of attraction works through resonance, and right now, your field is calling in restoration, not reaction. There's a deeper spiritual law at work here too. In sacred scripture, there's a promise that speaks straight to the heart of this moment. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days it will return to you. Ecclesiastes 11 verse 1. This verse doesn't speak to instant reward. It speaks to divine timing, the kind that waits until your soul is ready not just to receive, but to hold and grow what comes. So if you've felt like you've been pouring out with little return, if you've given love, time, effort, care, or creativity without acknowledgement, know this: heaven saw it all. The universe never forgot. What you planted was never wasted. Numerology, too, reflects this orchestration. The numbers 6, 8, and 11 are surrounding your energetic field this month. 6 reminds you that unconditional love, given freely, will return not because you demanded it, but because it was genuine. 8 activates cycles of financial equilibrium. What was out of balance now finds order. And 11? 11 is the portal. The invitation to walk through into a new timeline of conscious co-creation. You are not just being compensated with money. You are being met with confirmation. A job opportunity, a message of gratitude, an unexpected deposit, a new source of revenue, whatever shape it takes. Let it remind you of who you truly are, someone who has earned not just abundance, but peace. Do not underestimate the quiet power of this return. It may not be loud. It may not arrive with confetti or applause. But it will be clear. Something is coming home to you not because you chased it, but because you never abandoned your truth. If this resonates, take a moment to anchor it. Comment below: I am aligned, and I receive with peace. Let that be your signal to the universe and a prayer whispered on the current of your own faith. Because Scorpio, your harvest season has begun. Sometimes, the most significant transformations begin not with celebration, but with silence. Something ends. It exits quietly, without warning, without a clear reason, without closure. And in that empty space, you're left with only your breath, your heart still beating, and the lingering question: why? Scorpio, you may have recently experienced such a momentous, unexpected farewell. It might have been a relationship that slipped through your fingers, a role or job that no longer fit, or even a dream that you've carried for years, now suddenly feeling out of reach. And it's okay to grieve it. It's okay to feel disoriented, uncertain, even abandoned. These are natural human responses to a divine redirection. But what if this wasn't loss in the way your mind labels it? What if this was sacred clearing? In astrology, Pluto, the ruling planet of Scorpio, isn't interested in what's comfortable. It's interested in what's real. It governs death and rebirth, not just physically, but symbolically. Under Pluto's influence, anything built on shaky foundations will eventually collapse. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because when your soul is ready to evolve, your life must be restructured to match that inner evolution. You may have tried to hold it together. You may have stayed longer than you should have, hoping something would shift if you just gave it more time, more love, more energy. But not everything is meant to be saved. Some things are meant to be surrendered not as defeat, but as wisdom. Not as punishment, but as preparation. There's a quiet kind of courage in letting go without understanding. A maturity in releasing something even when your heart still longs for it. And there's power in saying, I don't need to know why it ended to know that I am being protected. This kind of departure, though sudden, is often a sign that the universe is no longer willing to let you settle. You've outgrown what once felt like safety. You've healed beyond the version of you that once accepted less than you deserved. And so the old begins to fall away, not because you failed, but because you evolved. You don't need to chase closure. Sometimes, peace comes not from the answers you're looking for, but from the strength to trust what you cannot yet see. Like a garden that needs pruning, parts of your life must be cut back so that the roots underneath can deepen and the new can rise stronger. This is not the end. It is sacred preparation. Imagine the potter at the wheel. He doesn't keep the cracked vessel. He doesn't throw it away in frustration either. He breaks it down and begins again, his hands reshaping the same clay, not with judgment, but with intention. You are not broken, Scorpio. You are being remade. If something has left your life recently gently, painfully, or with no warning at all, this is your confirmation that the loss was not a punishment. It was protection. It was sacred timing. It was the invisible hand of life rearranging your path to prepare you for something more aligned. And while it's natural to mourn what's no longer here, don't let grief convince you that goodness isn't ahead. You are being led not away from something, but towards something greater. And in that in-between space, between goodbye and next, you are being invited to trust not in the outcome, but in your inner stability. If this speaks to your soul, pause here with me. Take a breath. Then say it aloud or write it down as a quiet prayer to yourself. I let go with grace. I trust what leaves. I open to what comes. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stay present with the truth. Nothing that's meant for you will ever require you to shrink, chase, or beg. And if you're still reading, know this: what left wasn't yours to carry into the next chapter. What's coming is. When love arrives as a mirror, not a rescue, it changes everything. Scorpio, after all the shedding, all the quiet release, and the emotional evolution you've endured, you are now standing at the edge of something profoundly different. This chapter in your love story is not about chasing validation, proving your worth, or trying to heal someone else in hopes they'll stay. It's about being met, truly seen for the soul you've always been. In astrology, when the lovers meets the Hierophant in a reading, it signals a union that is both intimate and sacred, emotional and enduring. This is not the fleeting spark of passion that fades at dawn. This is the steady flame of devotion, rooted in shared values and spiritual depth. The kind of connection that doesn't shout to be noticed but speaks in silence, in presence, in consistency. A love that doesn't fill an empty space, but shares in a fullness already cultivated within. You've done the inner work. You've healed pieces of your heart that once thought love had to be dramatic to be real, or painful to be powerful. But now you know, real love is steady. It walks beside you without conditions. It knows when to hold space for your solitude and when to reach for your hand. It doesn't demand you shrink to fit into its shape, it adapts gently to the contours of your true self. The person coming toward you may not arrive with fanfare. There may be no grand gestures or cinematic confessions. Instead, they'll appear in the rhythm of everyday life, perhaps in a quiet glance, a moment of understanding, a conversation that feels like coming home. And when they do, you'll recognize them. Not because they're perfect, but because their presence feels safe, familiar, and strangely inevitable. They won't fear your emotional depth, they'll honor it. They won't be confused by your stillness, they'll sit beside it. This is not the kind of relationship that asks you to change. It invites you to return to yourself. And it's not here to complete you, because you're not broken or missing anything. It's here to walk with you, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart. A companionship born not out of loneliness, but out of alignment. Energy-wise, the frequency of this love is deeply grounded. The color amethyst, which supports the heart and crown chakras, wraps you in spiritual protection while expanding your capacity for vulnerability. Terracotta, warm and earthy, roots you in stability and reminds you that love grows best in soil that's been lovingly tended. Silver glimmers with intuitive knowing, guiding you to trust your inner signals when they say, "This is safe. This is right." What's important to remember is that this love doesn't come to impress. It comes to stay. And you'll feel it not just with your heart, but with your nervous system. Your body will soften in their presence. Your breath will slow. Your mind will quiet. Because real love doesn't add chaos. It brings calm. It doesn't pull you off course. It walks with you towards something more whole. So if you've ever wondered whether someone could love you as you are, scars and all, the answer is yes. And that, yes, is on its way to you now. The work you've done to return to yourself is what's drawn this energy in. Stay open. Stay rooted. Stay ready not to be saved, but to be met. And if you already feel it, like something is shifting in the air, like your soul is preparing to recognize something familiar in the eyes of another, take a moment and whisper to yourself, "I am ready for the kind of love that meets me where I am." That one sentence can become the doorway to everything you've been preparing for. Healing does not always arrive in the form of dramatic revelations or overnight transformation. Sometimes, it begins with a quiet whisper, a gentle tug in your spirit telling you that something needs to shift. Scorpio, after all the emotional intensity you've weathered, all the endings you've endured, and all the growth you've fought hard to earn, you're now being invited into a new kind of power. Not the loud kind, not the kind that requires armor, but the kind that stems from inner peace and steady choices. This chapter is not about doing more. It's about listening more deeply, honestly, and without judgment. Your body, your emotions, your energy are always speaking to you. They're not asking for perfection. They're asking for partnership, And when you begin to honor your physical and emotional needs with reverence, you'll notice something subtle but life-changing. Your clarity returns, your intuition sharpens, and your energy field becomes magnetic to what is truly aligned. Start with the simple things, the things you've maybe been too busy or too tired to prioritize. Getting enough sleep, not just in hours, but in quality. Drinking more water throughout the day, not as a chore, but as a way of telling your body, I want you to feel supported. Practice breathwork, specifically the 4-7-8 method, to help recalibrate your nervous system. These aren't just wellness trends, they are small rituals that realign your inner landscape. Your system may also be carrying the residue of recent emotional shifts. Caffeine might spike your anxiety without you realizing it. Processed sugar might be clouding your clarity. This is not about restriction, it's about choosing nourishment. Add in more greens, omega-3 rich foods, and calming teas like chamomile in the evening. Think of each decision as a way to vote for the version of you that feels clear, calm, and capable. And when it comes to money, begin to see it not as stress, but as frequency. Tracking your spending isn't about control, it's about becoming conscious. Where energy goes, awareness flows. Start simply, a notebook, a spreadsheet, an app. Watch how much more empowered you feel when you're not avoiding your finances, but learning to work with them. Money responds to clarity, not fear. In your work life, if you've been feeling stagnant or underinspired, it may not be a sign of failure, it may be a call to realignment. Don't dismiss the discomfort. It's often the soul's way of nudging you toward expansion. Ask yourself, is this still fulfilling me, or am I simply surviving it? Sometimes, change is required not because something is broken, but because your spirit has grown too big for the space you're in. Growth can feel like restlessness before it feels like relief. And in love, dear Scorpio, this is your moment to stop shrinking for connection. Express yourself slowly, honestly, gently. You don't need to speak perfectly or feel confident all the time. You only need to show up with presence. The right person won't run from your feelings. They will hold space for them. But first, you must be willing to hold space for yourself. None of this is about mastering everything at once. It's about cultivating tiny, consistent shifts that reinforce the truth. You are worth taking care of. You are worth showing up for, even on the days when it feels easier to check out. And no matter how far you've come or how far you still want to go, your life responds to intention. Begin again today, not because you're broken, but because you're ready to live from a deeper, calmer, more grounded place. If even one part of you feels called by this, honor it. Let your healing journey be slow, sacred, and yours. This isn't a race. It's a remembering. You are not behind. You are becoming. When transformation begins within, it does not always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it enters like a breeze, soft, almost unnoticed, but you can feel it shifting something subtle inside you. That's the power of ritual. And Scorpio, after all that you've released, survived, and embraced through this journey, it's time now not to ask but to receive. The final part of this path is not about effort. It's about invitation. A sacred, conscious invitation for goodness to find you, not as a reward for suffering, but as a recognition of readiness. Rituals, especially those involving intentional words and movement, are powerful anchors between our energetic field and our conscious mind. You've heard it before, words carry frequency. But when words are spoken with awareness, with breath, and with emotion, they don't just float away. They reprogram your field. They tell your nervous system that it is safe now to soften, to receive, to let go. And when those words are repeated not once, but daily, they become like water on dry earth. They nourish what's been waiting to grow. The ritual I'm inviting you to embrace today is not complicated, but it is deeply potent. These 3 lines aren't affirmations in the modern, superficial sense. They are declarations of a soul who has come home to itself. I no longer have to sacrifice to be loved. That sentence alone can shift lifetimes of conditioning. If you've ever believed you had to prove your worth, to earn your place in someone's heart, to keep giving even when you were empty, then this line breaks that cycle. It's not selfish. It's sacred. Love given from overflow is love that lasts. Love demanded from depletion becomes a pattern of pain. I do not hold on to what has completed its purpose. Here you reclaim your boundaries not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You are no longer a container for expired energy. You are not a museum of old stories. You are a living temple. And temples deserve to be cleared, refreshed, honored. Some endings are not losses. They are completions. And completion is holy. I open my heart, and what is meant for me finds me like a friend I once knew. This is the final release. A surrender without fear. A door left open not in desperation, but in trust. When you let life meet you here, you stop chasing. You begin attracting not by striving, but by resting in your truth. You become magnetic to miracles, not because you beg for them, but because you've made room. Performing this simple ritual each morning, standing before a mirror, palm on your chest, breathing slowly and deeply, is not about superstition. It's about embodiment. You are re-entering your body as a place of peace. You are reminding every part of your system that this day is new, and so are you. This moment is not a continuation of survival, it is a portal into conscious living. As you repeat these words, feel them. Let them become more than sounds. Let them carry the weight of your choices, the softness of your healing, the strength of your clarity. You are not the same person who began this journey. You have shed, forgiven, witnessed, and rebuilt. And now, it's time to seal the journey with a gesture of grace. Let this ritual be the final note in the song you've been composing with the universe. Let it echo through your field, not with urgency, but with certainty. You are ready. Not someday now. The door is open. And what you've been seeking is already walking toward you, quietly, faithfully, like a promise kept just beyond the veil. Let it in. You've come a long way, Scorpio. And whether you realize it or not, you've just walked through 3 sacred thresholds: the gate of divine compensation, where what you once gave in silence finally returns to you; the gate of release, where you had the courage to let go of what no longer nourished your spirit; and now, the gate of sacred love, where you are being met not for who you were, but for who you've become. This journey has not been linear. It has asked you to surrender, to trust, to wait without knowing. But now, you are no longer waiting. You are receiving. Not as someone seeking proof, but as someone finally standing in the truth of their worth. If there's one thing I hope this message has reminded you, it's this: you do not have to do more, give more, or be more in order to be worthy of love, abundance, or peace. You are already aligned with everything your soul has been calling in, implied by being present, by healing, and by listening to your own quiet knowing. Let me ask you this, with tenderness and intention. What are you still holding on to that no longer supports the version of you you're becoming? What truth within you have you silenced for too long? And more importantly, are you ready to stop waiting for a sign, and become the one who says yes to your next chapter? Because you can. Right now. This is the turning point where faith becomes action. Where your inner clarity becomes outer magnetism. Where you shift from surviving your life to consciously co-creating it. That shift doesn't have to be loud. It begins in the smallest, most sacred of ways, by choosing yourself. By choosing stillness. By choosing softness where there used to be pressure, and curiosity where there used to be fear. So as we close this chapter together, I invite you to anchor what you've received. Write it down. Say it aloud. Share it in the comments if you feel called to. Let this be your declaration: I am ready to receive all that is rightfully mine. Not out of lack. Not out of fear. But from the deep knowing that you were never meant to earn what has always been waiting for you to allow it in. If this message touched something in you, if even one sentence felt like it was written for the version of you that's been quietly hoping for a sign, know that you're not alone. This space, this channel, was created for souls like yours. And here, on Miracle of the Sign, we don't just predict, we awaken, we guide, and we remind you of what your spirit already knows. You are seen, you are loved, and you are being gently led home. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself, and for the collective healing we're building together. Every like, every comment, every time you subscribe, it's not just support. It's alignment. It's a ripple that allows messages like this to reach those who need them most. So stay with me. Stay in the vibration. Because the next message may be the one that shifts everything. And until then, remember this: you're not here to chase miracles. You are the miracle. Let it begin with you.